Hey y'all, welcome back to the Secular Homeschool Revolution, the podcast for secular progressive homeschoolers who are reimagining education for their kids unapologetically. I am your host, Ashley. Okay, so this is going to be a quick little mini episode, but I wanted to hop on and talk about something I'm really excited. I made a Juneteenth unit study and I'm offering it to you guys for free. I am proud of it. I am genuinely proud of it. I am one of those people who truly believe you should celebrate your big wins and also the small wins. And a lot of you know I've been homeschooling my kids for a long time. I've co-founded a homeschooling cooperative and a micro school. I've led co-op classes and activities and book clubs. The list could go on and on. But that part is not new. And I have been building curriculum informally for a really long time, whether I called it that or not. And this feels different because I'm actually packaging it up and putting it out there for families to use. And it feels like a big step. This whole podcasting journey has been a big step for me, and I love all the little branches of growth that I've been experiencing with it. And also, this particular unit study feels really special because I was able to work with my husband on it. And so he does that for a living. He does a lot of things, but one of the things he does for income for our family is he does build curriculums for all types of things, whether it's like work, like a formal, corporate training manuals to like school levels. He does build curriculums. And I thought, man, I really do need to use the resource in my house. So I usually build things from the heart, from passion first. And then it's like, okay, what do I want my kids to understand from this? And then I ask, like, what's missing from traditional curriculum? And what do I wish more homeschool families had access to when I was looking at this? And so I put the bones together. And then my husband came behind and helped me fine tune it and tighten things up and made sure it made sense and that a parent could actually open it and use it without feeling lost. So it was really special for us to work on together, and we did not kill each other. Right? Because I think my way is the best way. He thinks his way is the best way. And you know what? We survived. So I'm also proud of that too. And the question we asked together for us was, how do we help families teach Juneteenth in a way that is honest and age appropriate, that is not full of just trauma, but offers joy, and it's decolonized and it's not watered down? Because Juneteenth is one of those things that I feel gets dismissed or watered down really fast. And it deserves to be more than a coloring page, you know? Um, and I think our kids deserve more than that. And to fully understand that Juneteenth is Texas history, it's a Black freedom story. It was about delayed freedom and resistance and, why it's important to celebrate the joy and all of that. So I feel like it took a lot of work for one unit to hold all of it, but we were able to accomplish it. And also, I wanted families to be able to feel not even comfortable, but comfortable in the way to talk about Juneteenth without making it too heavy for kids. Because if we try to like jump around on things and not acknowledge things truthfully, then the truth ends up disappearing. And I wanted it to be more meaty than telling kids, oh, freedom was delayed for Juneteenth. But I want them to fully understand that the Emancipation Proclamation did not instantly free everyone, and I want them to understand that enslaved people were not just waiting around to be free, that they were surviving and resisting and preserving culture and fighting for liberation and, the big kind of ways and the small kind of ways. And I think can I think kids can understand that when we give them the right language. And so part of the unit study is a decolonized vocabulary for adults, for the adults or parents who are using the guide, as well as for kids. Um, and I think it matters because the words we use shape the way we tell history. And a lot of us were taught history with very flat, vague language. It made it almost sound like enslaved people were passive and just allowed this to happen to them. And that's not true. And so the vocabulary in this unit helps us shift that. And it helps us say enslaved people instead of reducing people down to slavery as like their whole identity. And it helps us understand and talk about resistance and liberation and delayed freedom and emancipation. And most importantly, Black joy, because Black joy still needs to be discussed. We spend a lot of time talking about Black trauma when we're talking about Black history, and that doesn't have to be the whole story. And I do feel like some parents want to teach better, but they just don't have the words yet. And so hopefully this could be a resource to start pointing you in that direction, because I do feel like it gives background, it gives vocabulary, it gives you the discussion questions, and it helps you develop your flow in the conversation. And the student workbook gives your kids space to write and reflect and draw and process what they're learning. And one thing I really wanted this unit study to do is to help our kids think like historians. I don't want them to just memorize dates. I don't want them to just repeat the facts. And I want them to be able to ask questions. And if they practice it in this unit, then they'll practice it in other units, right? Who is telling the story? Whose voices are missing? And these are the same things I talk about in other episodes, like who had the power, who was harmed, who resisted, what happened before this moment? Why does history still matter today? And that's what historians do. That's how they think. That's how they process information. They ask questions. They look at the details. They notice what's left out. They think critically about the past instead of just accepting, oh, that's what happened. And I feel like this unit really helps the kids build that skill. So when we teach Juneteenth, we're not just teaching it's another holiday, but we're teaching kids how to look at history with care and intention. And when we are teaching them that freedom was not handed just to them because this president was like, oh yeah, this needs to happen because I feel bad. No, I want them to understand that Black people were not passive and were waiting on someone, and they were actively working for their own liberation. And I do believe that this kind of learning helps kids become deeper thinkers, and it helps them slow down and ask, okay, what is happening here? What actually happened? Where are all these other people? Where's the story I'm connected to? And I feel like, again, that's going to help them lead to being curious and question everything. So yeah, this unit is not just about Juneteenth. It's about helping our kids build the tools to think about, question, reflect, and understand history in a fuller way. And I try to do it in a way that didn't feel complicated, or it wasn't complicated. Also, there is a pacing guide to show you can do it in 5 days, 2 days, or 3 days. And it just gives you the breakdown on how, in whichever way you choose to do it, because I know we're all homeschoolers and the homeschool life has a lot of flexibility, and I didn't want you to feel tied down to just one way of using the unit study. So again, it comes in one PDF, and so and it has a table of contents to let you know where the parent guide starts and ends, where the student guide starts and ends. You can print it and punch holes in it and put it in a binder to work through, but I really want you, before you start facilitating this to your kid, read through the parent overview and the vocabulary. And then, could this be something your kid works through independently? Sure, but I think it's best if you're working through it together. And the connected resource is the Opal Lee's book about Juneteenth. And if you don't have the book, Don't let that stop you. Look it up on YouTube, or if it's checked out of the library or it's not going to get here in time for when you plan to facilitate the lesson, look it up on YouTube for a read aloud. And also, one more thing, I wanted to include Opal Lee because I'm from Fort Worth. She's from Fort Worth. Shout out to the hometown. But because I think kids need to know that history is just not something that happened way back then, and that people are still doing the work for fighting for truth and memory and recognition to make sure things don't get erased and we are not active participants in cultural erasure. And Opal Lee's story shows kids that one person can keep pushing, keep walking, keep talking to make sure a whole country remembers something that it should have never forgotten. And there's power in that, and I also want to be real transparent about the design part. The designing and making sure everything was aligned. Woo, that stretched me because I feel like I do believe in the content fully. My husband believes in the content, but our gifts are not in design. And when I'm working with my co-op in the micro school, my co-founder is very much great at design, right? Shout out to Jen and her abilities. But that is not my gift. But I feel like I did my best. I was really intentional, leaning on making sure the content and the way it was laid out was okay for people who were visually impaired, right? And I was trying to make sure, and I was looking up best practices for worksheets for people with dyslexia. So I tried to incorporate pieces of that. So it's not as glitz and glam, but it definitely gets the job done. And I'm looking forward towards my own progress in design. But until I get there and learn, I am very proud of the actual content. And the first part is understanding it's not perfect, but it is usable and it's something I think families can use right now. And I am proud of what I created. Sometimes we hold things back because we're waiting for perfect. And I had to remind myself that perfect is not the goal. Useful is the goal. Truthful is the goal. Meaningful is the goal. And I believe this unit is youthful and truthful and meaningful. So yes, I'm excited, nervous, and proud at the same time. And this is me branching out more with Secular Homeschool Revolution. And me and my husband have been working on more unit studies that hopefully help families teach history and identity and culture and, joy in a more honest and accessible way, because that is the kind of education our kids deserve. So yeah, if you were looking for a Juneteenth resource that is free and open and go and is very thoughtful, check it out. I will have the Teacher Pay Teacher link on the show notes. And also, if you go to my website, again, because I'm learning to build websites, on my homepage, if you scroll down, there's also a link to my Teacher Pay Teacher store, and I believe it says Shop Unit Studies. So I'm looking forward to adding more on my Teacher Pay Teacher store. So please use this in your own homeschooling journey, or if you're trying to prevent summer slide, or in your co-op, or as a conversation starter. If you use it, I really would love to hear how it goes. And to keep this episode short, I just want to thank you for supporting this next step of Secular Homeschool Revolution. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing my work. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and send this episode to a homeschooling parent who wants to teach Juneteenth but isn't quite sure and needs a resource. And until next time, keep reimagining education unapologetically.